Hi, and thanks for joining us. Over the past few videos, we've been helping you to understand why we believe that everything that you've ever learned about generating leads and growing your business is wrong. We've been trying to help you understand the importance of strategic marketing, what you say and how you say it, rather than tactical marketing, which is where you put your message like radio, TV, print, trade ads, websites, etc. Our first video, we clarified the purpose of marketing, which was to facilitate your prospect's decision-making process. Then we helped you see the difference between your inside reality and your outside perception. Your inside reality is how you conduct business, how you treat your customers, and deliver extraordinary value to your customers. Your outside perception is how your prospects and customers see your business, often as a factor of your advertising and marketing. The sad truth is that for most businesses, those things are often not the same. Then in the most recent video, The History of Marketing, we shared how marketing has changed and why these things have happened. And now, with this short educational video, we're going to share with you the conversion equation and how marketing works. We'll share with you then the systematic formula and process that you can use for the marketing in your business so that you can fix these issues for your business forever. The conversion equation has four main components. And let me start with a brief introduction of each, and then we'll go into more detail. The first component of the conversion equation is called interrupt. This is simply the process of getting a qualified prospects to pay attention to your marketing. This is often accomplished by affecting the prospect emotionally. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it's a lot more difficult to pull this off in real life, unless you understand what you're about to learn. The second component is engage. Once the prospect is interrupted, it's critical to give the reader the promise that the information is forthcoming that will help the prospect make the best possible decision, or in other words, facilitate their decision-making process. This is also best accomplished on an emotional level. The third component is educate. Once you've interrupted and engaged the prospect, you have to give them information that allows them to logically understand how and why you solved that emotional problem. This is accomplished by giving detailed, quantifiable, specific, inside reality revealing information. This turns the corner from an emotional sell. Remember, you interrupted and engaged them based on emotional hot buttons, not a logical sell. And it turns the corner to a logical sell. This is easy to do if you just follow the conversion equation. The fourth and final component of the conversion equation is the offer. Now the prospect has been interrupted based on problems that are important to them emotionally, engaged by the promise of a solution to that emotional problem, and they've examined the educational information that you've provided that makes your solution to that emotional problem real and believable. So the last step for you to do is to give the prospect a low, or better yet, no risk way for them to take the next step in the sales process. This can be accomplished by offering a free marketing tool, such as a free report, a brochure, seminar, audio video training, something similar that educates them even more so that the prospect feels in complete control of the decision-making process. This conversion equation follows the formula for what marketing is supposed to do in the first place. In fact, at this point, we can simply say that marketing's job is to interrupt, engage, educate, and offer. If you want to know what Jane Doe sees, you'd first better understand how her brain works, how it processes information, and how it makes decisions. To understand this process, there are three major concepts that I need to teach you. Three concepts that no one else in the marketing world seems to understand. But these three concepts that will make the biggest difference in the world in your marketing efforts and more importantly, in your company's profitability. Those three things that you need to know about Jane Doe's brain are downtime, uptime, and the reticular activating system, also known as reticular activators. Now I'd like to go into each one of them in detail. Let's begin by discussing that first concept called downtime. Simply put, This is a hypnotic state of running automatic patterns that allows your brain to perform habitual tasks without any conscious thought. You do this all the time. So do I. For instance, have you ever driven to work and when you finally got there, you don't remember making the trip? That's downtime. This occurs because driving to work is a habitual pattern that we all use frequently. We don't have to consciously think about it. Have you ever stepped out of the shower and you couldn't remember if you shampooed your hair or not? Your brain performs all of these daily routine functions with no conscious thought. Now, that's what downtime means. In marketing terms, people see and hear ads with their eyes and ears, but they don't notice them on a conscious level. If you open a newspaper, you'll be looking at maybe 70% ads and only 30% bona fide news articles. But because these ads are seen on a downtime level, 9.9 times out of 10, they won't consciously notice them at all. All you consciously see is the news, which is what you were there for in the first place. The second concept is what's known as uptime. This is the brain state of alertness or active engagement. It's like when you're driving on the freeway in a heavy thunderstorm. Your hands from the wheel at 10 and 2, and your pupils are as big as saucers. You're sensitive and responsive to everything around you. You're in uptime when you're watching a horror movie, when you hear the music building in a crescendo in an anticipation of something scary to happen. You can think of uptime as your brain going on alert mode. But here's what uptime means when it comes to your marketing. When your prospect is in uptime mode, they consciously notice your ad or the marketing piece that you're providing. They are open to your suggestions and solutions. Something captures their attention and compels them to keep paying attention. The key to marketing is to get your prospect out of downtime and into uptime. We want to shake them out of their natural subconscious haze when they never see your ad or the marketing piece, and into uptime where they are fully conscious and aware of what you're trying to communicate to them. Once you understand how to do this, you'll have the ability to make a fortune with your marketing. But to completely grasp this model, you've got to learn the third major concept of how Jane Doe's brain works, which is called the reticular activator. The reticular activator is that part of your brain that's on the lookout 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when you're asleep. It constantly scans the environment looking for things that fall into any of these three categories. Things that are familiar, things that are unusual, or things that are problematic. When the brain detects any of these three categories on a subconscious level, it sends a message over to the conscious side of the brain and says, hey, wake up, there's something here you need to pay attention to. And by the way, whatever those familiar, unusual, or problematic things are, we call them activators. In short, your brain, on a subconscious level, is constantly on the lookout for activators. It's searching for things that are familiar, things that are unusual, things that are problematic. In other words, things that demand a conscious response. Whenever it finds one, it pokes your conscious brain, snaps it out of the downtime sleep mode that it's in, and puts it into uptime alert mode. Let me give you an example of the raw power of your own reticular activator. And please, don't get mad at me for what I'm about to do to you. I'm going to permanently embed this example directly into your reticular activating system, and I guarantee that you will remember this for the rest of your life on this planet. Seriously, here we go. I'm certain that at some point over just the past few weeks, you've glimpsed a FedEx truck making delivery in your area. FedEx has been in business since June 18th, 1971. That's a lot of years for those trucks to be driving around town. So let me ask you a question. How many times have you seen those FedEx trucks? Over the 40 plus years that they've been in business, I would wager you've seen those trucks a minimum of 1,000 times. So here's question number 2. Have you ever seen the hidden message within the FedEx logo? Yes, that's a serious question. Did you know that there is a hidden message in the FedEx logo? If you're saying right now that that's impossible, and you've seen the logo 1,000 times, You certainly would have noticed a message in there. 99% of the population has never seen this hidden message. Ready for me to tell you where it is? If you're saying right now that it's impossible, that you've seen that logo thousands of times, and you certainly would have noticed a hidden message if at some point 99% of us have never seen that hidden message. So, are you ready for me to tell you where it is? The next time you see a FedEx logo, look between the E and the X in FedEx, and you will see an arrow pointing to the right. It's as plain as day, and yet very few people have ever detected it over these years. And guess what? The logo was specifically designed that way from the start. It isn't just something that happened when the designer created it. Almost no one sees it, but guess what? You will now, and every single time you look at that logo. Why? Because now that I've drawn your attention to it, coupled with the fact that you had no idea that it was there before, the next time you see that arrow, your brain will perceive it to be unusual, and that automatically triggers your reticular activating system. Remember, things that are familiar, unusual, or problematic poke your brain and make it pay attention through your reticular activator. But guess what's going to happen next? Now that you know the arrow was there, every time you see the FedEx logo, your brain will immediately seek out that arrow. And as you observe it over and over, the arrow will move from beginning unusual to becoming familiar. And in both of these cases, guess what happens? You will only notice the arrow for a second or two because your brain activates when it sees it, moving you from downtime to uptime. But since the arrow isn't really relevant or important to you, your brain will quickly revert to downtime. So what does all this have to do with marketing then? The answer is everything. Understanding what wakes people up so that they pay attention is what's going to get your marketing message past the interrupt stage and onto the engage stage. And when we engage your prospect, we've just increased our chances of selling to the people that you're trying to engage by 1,000%. This is going to solve the problem that most other marketers haven't been able to figure out, which is not just getting them interrupted, but also getting them engaged. It's not about finding any old activator. It's about finding the right activator. Any idiot can simply interrupt people. In fact, that's actually very easy to do. The so-called marketing gurus over at Madison Avenue do it all the time. Those guys and gals that prefer to use activators based on all the things that are familiar and unusual, and they're really easy to pull off. Have you ever noticed the different kinds of animals you see in advertising? That's because animals are familiar and likable, and the idea is that those animals will interrupt you by poking your conscious brain when they're detected by your reticular activator. Aflac has the duck. Geico has the lizard. Coke has its bears. You constantly are seeing dancing elephants and talking dogs and finicky cats. All of these animals have good interim value based on their familiarity. That's also the major reason that big advertisers use celebrities. Familiarity. And what about activators based on unusual things? Well, that's what creativity is all about. Creativity's main purpose in advertising is to dream up something so weird, so strange, so shocking, and so unusual that it'll snap you out of downtime and into uptime, otherwise known as interrupt. But here's the key, and here's what no one else seems to understand, and what may be just the most important thing you're going to learn in this presentation, that once the brain is activated and it's broken out of downtime and into uptime alert mode, it wants to be engaged. So it immediately and subconsciously searches for additional clarifying information. The brain wants to know, hey, what's all this about and how does it affect me? Do I need to do anything about this? Literally, on a subconscious level, the brain goes on a fact-finding mission. The bottom line is the brain wants to know, how is this information important and relevant to me? Should I allocate any conscious bandwidth to this? So it searches for additional facts, and if it finds them, it becomes engaged. If not, it will revert back to downtime. We call these important, relevant issues hot buttons. A few years ago, if you were a golf fan and your reticular activator detected Tiger Woods on TV, it noticed that all the conscious level because Tiger Woods was familiar and he's an activator. Then your brain immediately asked, hey, what's Tiger Woods doing driving a Buick? And if there's anything there that was relevant, important to me, in other words, was it a hot button for you? And is this important in my life? What typically happens in your brain determines that Buick is not important or relevant to you. It doesn't do anything to solve any of your problems, and therefore it's not a hot button. And so your brain immediately reverts back into downtime. So let me be crystal clear. An activator is something that snaps a person from downtime to uptime and is based on something that is familiar, unusual, or problematic. But an activator can also be classified as a hot button if, and only if, it's based on something that is important and relevant to your prospects. Your best bet to successfully interrupt and engage your target market is to identify problems, frustrations, uncertainties, and annoyances that your prospects have, and then address them in your marketing. All we're doing is tapping into the problems that your prospects already have. We're not trying to manufacture a crisis for them. We're merely poking at their problems and pointing out those problems so that their reticular activator notices and brings us into their active radar screen. Now, here's the key to all of this, and one that no one in the big ad agencies seem to understand, but one that you need to know in order to make this all work for you and your business. The activators that are used need to interrupt the prospect must be based on their relevant hot buttons. If not, the prospect will momentarily be interrupted, but will quickly revert from uptime back to downtime. That's what we call false uptime. So let me give you an example. Have you ever heard someone call out your name in a crowded room? That immediately interrupts you because your name is familiar. But when you turn around and you see that whoever was calling you, you realize, oops, they were actually calling out to someone else with my name. Your name is an activator, but because it's in that situation, your name wasn't important or relevant to you, it didn't engage you. You quickly reverted right back to downtime. And again, that's false uptime. Remember what I said about the FedEx logo? Now that you know that the arrow is there, every time you see it, your brain will immediately seek it out because it's unusual. But the more you see it, that arrow shifts from being unusual to being familiar. Then you will only notice it for a second or two. Then your brain quickly reverts back to downtime because the arrow isn't relevant or important to you. This happens in marketing and advertising all the time. Most marketing interrupts, but it doesn't engage. Just like Tiger Woods and the Buick. He's famous, you like golf, and so it captures your attention. It interrupts you. But when you find out that it's not based on anything that's important to you, when there's nothing relevant, nothing that solves a problem that you have, you quickly revert to downtime. This is one of those things that almost no one understands, and one of the main reasons everything you've ever learned about marketing is wrong. You've been conditioned to believe that as long as you've interrupted the prospect, that's it, that's good enough, then the job is done. But you have to realize that if you only interrupt the prospect, that's only 1/4 of the conversion equation. You've got to include all 4 components. You've got to interrupt, engage, educate, and offer to get the maximum results from your marketing and advertising. Over these videos, we've been helping you to understand why we believe that everything you've ever learned about generating leads and growing your business is wrong. We've been trying to show you the importance of strategic marketing, that is, what you say and how you say it, rather than tactical marketing, which is where you put your message, like radio, TV, print, trade shows, websites, and the rest. the conversion equation, and how marketing works, we've shared with you the systematic formula and the process that you can use to market your business so that you can fix this in your business forever. In the next short video, we'll give you some real-life before and after examples of the conversion equation and how it's had a positive impact on the marketing message of our clients. If you stay until the end, we'll give you the opportunity to be able to learn all the things you need to learn to have a positive impact on your marketing and to grow your business and profits. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next video.